My girlfriend cheated on me with her boss for a promotion, and I'm struggling to move on. Am I overreacting? I'm Brian 23M, and I'm here to share something that's torn me up and turned my life upside down. I'm hoping for some advice or insight because, honestly, I feel lost. For some background, I work in construction as a carpenter. I always knew college wasn't for me, so I learned the trade from my uncle Glenn. Glenn has been my mentor for as long as I can remember, teaching me skills and helping me see that you don't need a degree to be successful. Our family didn't have much, but we were happy. In my last year of high school, I met Stacy. She was this beautiful, long-haired girl with a passion for life that was contagious. We ended up paired together on a class project, and despite my usual quiet demeanor, we clicked. We bonded over our love for role-playing games like Skyrim and Baldur's Gate, spending hours together gaming, talking and laughing. For the first time, someone cared about me outside of family. It felt incredible. Prom was our first real date. I borrowed my uncle's old 2008 Subaru Impreza to pick her up, and while everyone else was arriving in luxury cars, Stacy reassured me it didn't matter to her. She told me she liked me for who I was, not what I had. Hearing that made me feel like I could take on the world. That night, I asked her to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. After high school, I started working full-time with my uncle, who got me a job with one of his friend's companies. The guys at work jokingly called me Twinkle Toes, because of how fast I moved on the job. Meanwhile, Stacy wanted to go to college, but her grades made it hard for her to secure loans. She's the kind of person who hates asking for help, but I knew she needed support, so I offered to help pay for her tuition. Each semester cost around $5,000, which wasn't easy on my $1,200 weekly apprentice salary, but I wanted to do this for her. I proposed we find an apartment together, and after some searching, we found a cheap one-bedroom place for $800 a month. I worked long hours to make sure we could afford everything while she focused on school. I took on the responsibility of providing for both of us. And yeah, it was tough being 18 and financially supporting a household, but I loved her, and I believed in her dreams. Fast forward 5 years, and my hard work paid off. I'm now a solo contractor making between $90,000 and $110,000 a year. Stacy graduated and quickly landed a job as a financial analyst, pulling in around $180,000 a year after just a few promotions. I was incredibly proud of her and supported her every step of the way, celebrating her accomplishments with our families. Life was good, or so I thought. A few months ago though, I started noticing a change in Stacy. She grew distant, stopped doing the little things she used to do, like making breakfast for me or saying she loved me. I brushed it off as the stress of her new responsibilities at work. I was willing to adjust. Relationships have ups and downs, right? One night, she was asleep, and her phone buzzed. I glanced over, not expecting anything unusual, but what I saw shattered me. There were hundreds of messages, explicit photos, and even a video from her boss. The messages were degrading and full of disdain for me, calling me a weak man, and talking about how I wasn't good enough and how she deserved better. There were messages about how I was beneath her, and how she would have left me long ago if it weren't for the money I provided during college. Seeing all this left me feeling like my world had come crashing down. Stacy was everything I ever wanted and I'd worked so hard to build a life with her. But clearly that life meant nothing to her. I took screenshots, recorded everything, then put her phone back where it was and laid in bed, numb. The next morning, while she was getting ready for work, I told her I wasn't feeling well and would take the day off. After she left, I rented a U-Haul, packed up everything I owned from our apartment and moved out. My friend Jake let me stay with him until I could find a place of my own. When Stacy got home, she thought we'd been robbed. I answered her call, and she demanded to know where I was and what had happened. I told her, I know everything, Stacy. I saw the messages, the photos, even the video. Why did you cheat on me with your boss? After all we've been through, how could you treat me like this? Instead of apologizing, she blamed me, saying I wasn't making enough, and that I couldn't keep up with her lifestyle. She claimed I was holding her back. This was the woman I'd sacrificed so much for, who I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, and all she could do was tear me down. She tried to spin it as if I was at fault, but I knew better. I'd been loyal, loving and supportive. Hearing her excuses only confirmed that I made the right choice to leave. Hey Reddit, I wanted to thank everyone for the support, advice and encouragement. The outpouring of empathy has truly helped me stay strong through one of the hardest times in my life. It's been a few months since I moved out, and a lot has changed. I've managed to get my own place, a small one-bedroom apartment that feels like a fresh start. I'm taking things one day at a time and have reconnected with my old friends, like Jake and Tom, who have been my rock throughout this. As for Stacy, she tried to reach out a few times, but I'm not interested in opening up that chapter again. She's with her boss now, and from what I hear, things are already on shaky ground between them. It hurts, but I remind myself every day that this was a blessing in disguise. I deserve someone who values and respects me, not someone who sees me as a stepping stone. Update. Hey Reddit. It's Brian again. It's been a year since I shared my story about how my ex, Stacy, cheated on me with her boss for a promotion. I thought I'd give an update and bring some closure to this chapter of my life, especially since so many of you offered me advice and encouragement when I needed it most. After everything happened, I went through some serious lows. Stacy tried to reach out a few times, but I ignored her. I blocked her on social media and changed my number, wanting a fresh start. Moving on was difficult, but I was committed to rebuilding my life on my own terms. During this time, my friend Jake introduced me to some new people and I slowly started to find myself again. One person I met through Jake stood out, Emma. Emma was a friend of his girlfriend and had recently moved to the area for her own fresh start. She was warm, kind and supportive and I found myself drawn to her energy. Emma and I started spending more time together, hanging out in group settings and eventually going out one-on-one. She wasn't just a great listener, she made me laugh again. It was like she saw through my hurt and could still see the real me. After a while, I felt ready to open up to her about what had happened with Stacy. She listened patiently and never judged me, just held my hand and let me vent. One day, while Emma and I were out with friends, I saw Stacy. She looked surprised, maybe even a little jealous, seeing me laughing with someone else. I was nervous, but Emma gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. That's when I realized I was ready to let go of my past with Stacy and start something new with Emma. A few weeks later, I found out through mutual friends that Stacy had been let go from her high-paying job. Apparently, things had fallen apart between her and her boss. She managed to find another job, but it paid significantly less. I didn't want to gloat, but it was hard not to feel a sense of justice. It felt like karma was finally catching up with her. Then out of the blue she called me. She was crying, saying how she had made a huge mistake and that she missed me. She tried to tell me that she realized I was the one who'd always been there for her and that she'd only strayed because she was confused and under pressure. She begged me for another chance, saying she'd change and do whatever it took to win me back. Her words stung. Part of me wanted to believe her, to go back to the familiar. But then I remembered all those nights she belittled me in those texts with her boss. I remembered the betrayal, the lies, and the way she had made me feel like I wasn't enough. I had moved on, and I wasn't going to let her drag me back into that dark place. I told her that while I forgave her for what she'd done, there was no future for us. I explained that I was moving forward with my life and that she needed to do the same. She was devastated and tried every way to convince me otherwise, but I stayed firm. I wished her well, but I made it clear that we were over. Emma continued to be a source of light in my life. Our connection grew stronger with each passing day and I found myself feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Emma was patient, supportive and genuinely interested in my well-being. She encouraged me to reconnect with old hobbies, like woodworking, and even joined me on some hiking trips I'd always wanted to take. One day, after we'd been dating for nearly a year, I decided I wanted to take our relationship to the next level. I'd been through heartbreak, and I knew what it was like to lose someone. This time, I wasn't going to let fear hold me back. I proposed to Emma during one of our hikes, at a spot overlooking the mountains. She said yes, and it was the happiest moment of my life. We got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. My Uncle Glenn was my best man, and Jake was there by my side, supporting me as he had through everything. When we exchanged vows, I felt a peace I hadn't known was possible. Emma looked at me with so much love and admiration, and I knew this was where I was meant to be. Word eventually got around that I was married, and Stacy reached out one last time. She congratulated me, but I could sense her regret. She admitted that she'd taken me for granted and that losing me was her biggest mistake. She was respectful though, and didn't ask to meet up or rekindle anything. I thanked her for the message and wished her the best. I later heard that Stacy had moved to a new city to try and start over, and I truly hope she finds what she's looking for. Despite everything, I don't wish her any harm. I've made my peace with our past, and I'm focused on building a future with Emma. Looking back, I realized Stacy's betrayal was a blessing in disguise. It hurt more than I can put into words, but it pushed me to grow and figure out who I am and what I want in a relationship. If I hadn't gone through that heartbreak, I might never have met Emma. I'm grateful for everything I've been through because it led me to the love of my life. Thanks to everyone who supported me during those dark times. I never could have imagined that my life would take such a turn, but here I am, happier than ever, with someone who truly values and respects me.